All right, so let's look at some of the examples that we have out there, real decks that you can use to solve all different types of problems. And we're going to look at ones that help you ideate, diagnose, learn, play, and present. So ideation. This is a cool one. It's called ThinkPack. It's a brainstorming card deck, and it uses the Scamper method, which you may be familiar with. It's about creating something new by either, I think S is substitute, C is combine, A adapt, M magnify, modify, so you get the idea. So this has taken the Scamper method and made it into cards. So the idea here is you can draw a card out and it'll give you something to do. It'll ask you a question, what can be substituted, who else, where else, what other part could be substituted for this. So this is a pure ideation tool. You're looking to come up with something new, and this card deck can help you broaden your perspective about what that new idea might be. Oblique Strategies is a really cool deck. It was put together in collaboration with the musician Brian Eno. And I don't actually have the physical deck, but I do have the iPhone app. So it's interesting to watch how decks have also gotten into our technology. So Oblique Strategies is, it sounds oblique, but what it is it's helping creatives unblock. So if you have a block, it's trying to help you break through that. And it's great for ideation. So you basically, you tap it, and it'll give you something to provoke your mind. So do the words need changing? Go to an extreme. Move back to a more comfortable place. A lot of these are pretty zen. So that's another ideation one. IDEO's method cards. There are a lot of different method cards out there. Explain has our own method cards, which are right here. IDEO's method cards are beautiful, and they are all different methods for design thinking. Their cards come in 4 different suits: learn, look, ask, and try. And it's a great way to just sort through your planning, maybe some design research, or you're planning a process of inquiry, and you can sort right through these and identify things that might be applicable to your project or your need. All different ways of looking into design research, or also iterating all different principles within design thinking. So let's talk about tools for diagnosis. Now we're getting into exploring. Maybe we've opened up a lot of possibilities. And diagnosis tools are really going to help us, especially when we're working with a group with participants, to really understand what's in their head, what are the mental models that they're using. Tons of really, really good card decks out there for that. I already talked to you about the Explain Discovery card decks. These are used, you can go through with any sort of organization and sort out what are the issues that my company is facing. Is it culture clash? Is it falling sales? Is it lack of alignment? And we really quickly get to the root cause of what's going on in that organization. What are they challenged by? What are they struggling with? It's also great to do in groups of people, so maybe I'll have 20 or even 30 people do the card sort individually, and it's amazing. You always find out there are a lot of common patterns that even people that within a company maybe feel like they don't agree on what's really going on, you'll start to see that they all end up pulling the same cards, and it really brings some alignment and help us diagnose what's going on. They're all different diagnostic tools. One for if you're struggling with what you should do in your career. This one will help figure out what your talents are, and you can sort through, and it'll give you some insight into yourself, your own career progression. This one's all about leadership capabilities, and you can go through an organization and understand what the skills are within that organization, what the challenges are, any sort of performance issues. This one's very, very detailed and fantastic for, you see a lot of human resources consultants using this one. If you want to explore more about what your personal values are, this is a great one. You can do it at the organizational level or just at the individual level. I love this. Romance, spirituality, accuracy, realism. So you see, card sorts are all about what's a big universe out there, and then selecting from that to diagnose what's applicable to me. One really specific hands-on way you can do it, this is actually a deck I developed for a company I was consulting for. It was a consultancy, and they were trying to figure out common patterns and themes within all the projects that they do, that they consult for with other companies. So I did something very simple. I took all of the main projects that they had done, projects that they had consulted on for other companies, and I created a card for each one. And then with different groups of senior leadership, we went through and had them sort the cards different ways to identify trends and patterns. And it helped them think about how their practice areas should be organized, what's being successful, what's not being successful. We actually used it, we did one sort between, okay, of all of the consulting you've done, which of these projects have actually been implemented, and which did the client take your recommendations but didn't do anything with them? And we started sorting them into piles and using that to drive conclusions about what really makes an impact for their clients. These are some cards that we developed. It's actually it's a modification on the discovery cards, but it's really specific to that company's culture. And it is something that they use pretty frequently to diagnose what's going on really quickly in any situation in their company. So another diagnostic tool that's really commonly used, I don't have a physical example here, but it's commonly used in user experience design. If you're creating anything from a website to a kiosk, and you want to know what's somebody's mental model for understanding a large set of information. So a really cool example that's out there is the design process for coming up for, you know, when you check out at the grocery store and you do the self-checkout and you have to find, you know, you have a papaya and you have to check out that papaya, and where do you find that papaya in the system, right? So to actually come up with the categories of food, you know, thousands of products, they actually put each type of food or grocery item on a different card, and with hundreds of different people, asked them to sort those all different ways. It was a huge research project, but what it showed is common categories and mental models that people use, and that really drove the user experience design. So anytime you have components of a website or any sort of interface you're dealing with, card sorts can be really helpful for understanding what are the natural categories that your users might be looking for there. So we'll look at this one too. This is another diagnostic tool that we use. You see they can be pretty low tech. These are 32 barriers to behavior change that we see at companies, and we'll have our clients go through and sort these and say, here's what's going on that's really causing me trouble. And then actually each of these corresponds with the design principles that help get over that barrier. So let's talk about cards that can be helpful in a learning context. Obviously, we all know, you know, flashcards that we use with our kids. This is, you know, your Spanish language. Spanish language flashcards. Obviously, cards are a great way to learn information, test yourself because of that flip quality. So then we also have things like tarot cards, which are, you know, have been around for a long time. I think 15th or 16th century is when we think tarot cards came around, and I've never had my tarot cards read, but it's the whole idea of inspiration or divination using cards, and the, you know, randomization, the idea that you would shuffle them and then draw something by chance, and that would tell you something about yourself or what's going on in your life. But in a business context, we use cards a lot as well for learning. So we'll design learning systems and exercises that are basically a card sort really custom to the challenge that company might be facing. So this was a set that we used that was a game that people in a project management function within this company would play together to sequence out a planning event that actually wasn't even related to their business, but was a fun way to talk about what it takes to run a good project, what it takes to run a good program. And it was the basis for a lot of discussion about what's the right order to do things, who should be responsible for what. So putting people in that game context, we talk a lot about gamification online now, but card games are still very, very effective for organizational learning. Play is obviously a huge category in cards. I'm actually not going to deal with it that much here. I think we're all familiar with the capacity of card decks to be a fun way to play and entertain yourselves. I have some fun examples here, but I think in the business context, outside of kind of learning games, probably not as applicable, but keep playing games, it's awesome. Then presenting. This is kind of interesting because we don't often think of card decks as a format for any sort of final presentation, but in some cases it can be really, really powerful. So this is a piece that Facebook actually provided to a number of agencies that do social media design and consulting for all different companies wanting to advertise on Facebook. And they presented it as a big card deck. So what it is a bunch of their case studies, all different success stories that they've had, AT&T, British Telecom, Diageo, Ford, and they're presenting these pieces of information as an exploratory way to walk people through some content. So the idea is you could lay out all of these different case studies and say, well, which one looks interesting to you? And then it's sort of a self-directed way to have a conversation with someone. And it's really a beautiful and powerful presentation if what you're trying to present to someone can be presented in a non-linear or self-directed way. Another example, this is something that we did for a client, is this looks like a book, right? It looks like it has binding, but this is actually a really nice technology, pretty common in Europe, but you can get it here, where these rip right out and you can put them back in another place. So we were actually able to design these as unique cards that the user, this is actually like a field guide for a user literally out in the field, a worker out on the beach in this case. They would be able to reorganize this deck of information in a way that was relevant to them and their specific role. So decks can be a really interesting way to present information. There's also this idea, and I haven't seen anyone do it, so if you do it, let me know, but of presenting yourself as a card deck. What if instead of your typical paper resume, into an interview you brought a deck of cards that had all of your experiences on different cards, and you said to the person interviewing you, what do you want to talk about? What looks interesting to you here? And the idea of yourself, your own story, not necessarily having to be stuck in such a linear format. Card decks could be really, really cool in that situation as well. I hope we've given you a little bigger sense of the world of decks that are out there. And next time you're working with a group or by yourself, that you'll look to decks as a powerful tool to transform the way that you work. Maybe you'll even get a little bit addicted, like I am, to decks as a problem-solving tool. Thank you for watching.